Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz says Sunday's state elections in Brandenburg shows his party still has a mandate. According to exit polls, it gave his Social Democrats a narrow edge over the far-right alternative for Germany. The AfD still has a large enough minority in Brandenburg to potentially win concessions. The Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković knows all about working with politicians on the far right. He formed a governing coalition this spring that includes the Homeland Movement Party. Croatia, of course, has remained a strong voice for the EU, and it benefits, of course, that its members receive. The Prime Minister of Croatia, Prime Minister, is with me now. Prime Minister, it is good to see you, sir. I am grateful. This shift to the far right, this shift which we saw and continues to see, how difficult and uncomfortable does it make it for more centrists like yourself?
Well, first of all, we had the third victory, as you have shown in the introduction of this conversation between the two of us, that we have won the elections for the third time in Croatia over the past 8 years. We formed a coalition now with the Homeland Movement, but also with some other political parties which are of liberal orientation, which represent national minorities. And we have converged with a program of government which basically reflects 90% of our program for the elections, with some elements that partners included. So I didn't see in Croatia any move that one could consider from outside as deviating from the center-right line that I have been implemented as Croatian Prime Minister over the past 8 years, and will continue to do so next 4 years.
As you look at the way in which, I mean, you know, we can complain about far-right votes, etc., but the reality is if that's what Europeans are voting for, then they are telling us that something is wrong. What is that wrong?
Well, in my view, there were several elements which caused the changing architecture of the political spectrum across Europe. Number one are the consequences of the migratory crisis that is now with us for 10 years. The illegal migration has altered not only the security of our citizens, but has impacted in many Western countries the way of life. So this is one of the major reasons. The second reason is, of course, not only the consequences of COVID in terms of economic and social crisis, but then, of course, Putin's brutal aggression against Ukraine for the last 2.5 years, causing the biggest energy crisis around the world and especially in Europe, and the rise of prices of energy. When you combine these three elements with migratory crisis, COVID crisis, change of our habits, and the energy crisis with inflationary pressures, I guess this is one of the major reasons why people decided to vote for some other political options rather than the mainstream.
But if I look at the sort of the people at the top, I mean, there will be a change from Charles Michel and President Ursula von der Leyen, and if we look at the general makeup, it is difficult to see how European policies can adjust to accommodate a far-right agenda, particularly when you have people like Viktor Orban, who are still being very difficult.
Well, we are, after the European elections, in the process of the start of the new Commission, the change from Charles Michel to Antonio Costa. All of these people who are within the new Commission ranks come from the moderate parties, and also Orban was until yesterday basically part of the EPP. Now he has created a new group, the Patriots, but I think that the majority that is supporting the new Commission is very much balanced, and you don't see an impact of any extreme political parties that you might consider.
Right. I'm just going to take a flyer at this one. If we look at the US election, obviously you will be studiously neutral in terms of, and you will probably sort of say it's up to the American people, etc. But can Europe accommodate a President Trump?
Well, as you said, our position, and especially mine as the Prime Minister of a country, is to respect whatever the American people will decide in November, and I'm sure that all of my other colleagues would say the same. We, of course, worked with President Trump and his administration for 4 years. We worked with President Biden and his administration over the past 4 years. We shall respect the will of the American people. We want everything to pass orderly and that the American democracy is strengthened after the November elections rather than weakened, as it was last time.
Right, but on that last point, sir, the New York Times had an article just last week about how European governments are questioning the strength, not just as the strength of America's democracy and its ability to withstand these current forces. Do you question America's ability to withstand these forces?
Well, we are very closely observing what's going on in the United States. What we see here is a great polarization, very much of a conflicting scenario, but this is, I would say, also imminent in some other democratic countries. We have seen fragmentation, polarization recently across the board. This sometimes brings changes. Sometimes mainstream parties such as mine manage to remain in power for 3 consecutive mandates, which doesn't seem to be so easy, but let's say we've done our homework in terms of reforms and the GDP growth and the credit rating, which is now A- according to S&P and Fitch, and the prospects for Croatia as the youngest member state in terms of economic growth and catching up with those who were in the Union before looks rather positive, and I shall make sure that we continue fulfilling our obligations and create better conditions for Croats and the businesses, and especially for the investors, including the Americans, because I'll be seeing them tonight here in New York.
And your country, of course, as you well know, sir, because you and I have visited there together. Excellent place, magnificent place for a holiday. Look forward next time.
Please visit us again, Richard.
Oh, I don't think I need much more of an invitation than that, Prime Minister. Thank you.